Hello everyone, it's time to return to Ireland now in this series. I know many of you enjoyed and were perhaps a little bit surprised at just how many great scary stories Ireland has to offer. Well, it hasn't ended yet. There's still plenty more. I've got some of the best ones to share with you today. My name is Danny Burke and this is the top 10 scary Irish urban legends part 2. Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Derry Vampire. In the city of Derry, you can find an area known as Slaughterverty. There lies a grassy mound known as O'Cathain's Dolmen, marked by a single thorn tree. Legend says that a vampire is contained within it. Back in the 5th century, a chieftain known as Abatak ruled over the area. He was known for his cruelty and viciousness, even to his own tribe. Locals said that he was actually an evil wizard, using his powers to rise to a position of power. When he died, the tribe gave him a respectful burial. They thought that was the end of it. A day later though, his reanimated corpse appeared in the village. He demanded a bowl of fresh human blood or else he would release his terror upon them. The terrified village turned to help from another local chieftain called Cathain, begging that he kill Abatak. Well, he did. He came and killed Abatak, but he rose again, so he killed him again and again, but still he kept on living, returning to the village in search of human blood. Cathain consulted a Christian hermit for guidance. He directed that Abatak be killed using a wooden sword made of yew. He then had to be buried head downwards, weighted with a heavy stone. Finally, thorn bushes should be planted tightly in a circle around the grave. Somehow, it worked. To this day, the mound still remains. People believe it should be left exactly as it is, or else the vampire will return, demanding human blood. Next up at number 9 now, we have the Cottage of Cooneen. In Cooneen, on the Fermanagh-Tyrone border, lies an old abandoned cottage. In 1911, it belonged to the McPhee family. Legend says they were being plagued by poltergeists, mischievous ghosts that wanted them out. The family chose to stay. Mrs. McPhee was a widow. Her and the children began to hear mysterious noises at night. There were knocks on the door, footsteps in the empty attic above, and strange groans emitting from the walls. This was only the beginning though. Plates began sliding across tables by themselves, and bedcloths moved around in empty beds. Then it started getting even more intense. Pots and pans were thrown violently against the walls while furniture floated off the ground. Even when things weren't being smashed around, a strange coldness permeated the cottage as mysterious shapes appeared and then disappeared through the walls. In the end, a Catholic priest was called in to perform 2 exorcisms, but that didn't work. Locals began to believe the family had brought this evil on themselves and stopped helping them. Finally, the Murphys caved in and emigrated to America in 1913. Locals believe the ghost followed them. Now, over 100 years on, their cottage lies abandoned. People still say an evil atmosphere surrounds it. Next up at number 8 now, we have the Dunsandle mantelpiece. This house in Galway has so many ghost stories attached to it, it's hard to keep track of them. In the early 20th century, a stone worker who was repairing parts of the old house took a shining to one of the mantelpieces. He decided to take it with him back to his workshop. Now, legend says that the ghost of a tall man that haunted the house had somehow attached itself to the mantelpiece and went with it. The workshop then became haunted. Objects would fly around the room. Glasses and other items would smash or break. Perhaps the creepiest thing was the actual sightings of the ghost, often accompanied with sounds of an Irish fiddle playing in the distance. The only way to stop the hauntings was for the stoneworker to return the mantelpiece to Dunstable House, where it remains to this day, along with its ghostly legend. Moving on to number 7 now, we have the Faceless Lady of Belvelly Castle. In Cork Harbour lies Belvelly Castle. In the 17th century, it's said that a woman named Margaret Hodnett lived there. She loved mirrors. Back then, mirrors were a symbol of luxury and wealth. Not many people owned them. Margaret had many of them so that she could always remind herself of her famous beauty. She had an on and off relationship with a local lord called Clon Rockenby. He asked for her hand in marriage many times, but she always refused. Eventually, he had enough of the rejection and decided to raise a small army to take her castle and her by force. Definitely an overreaction, I'd say. You can't just raise an army if someone doesn't want you. Anyway, the attack didn't go well. Clon was forced to siege the castle. Margaret held on for a year before eventually surrendering. Clon entered the castle to find Margaret starved to death, a skeletal figure, and not the beauty he had sought after for so long. Out of rage, he smashed her favourite mirror to pieces. Then one of Margaret's soldiers killed him with a sword. After that, Margaret descended into madness. She looked for mirrors constantly to see if her beauty had returned, but it never did. She died of old age, and locals say her ghost appears in the castle as a lady in white, sometimes with a veiled face and sometimes with no face at all. They say you can still see her, staring at the walls where mirrors used to hang, tilting her head as if looking at her reflection. Moving on to number 6 now, we have Corney. In the early 20th century, reports began of a ghost called Corney haunting a house in Dublin. The husband had sprained his knee badly and had to use a crutch, thumping around during the day and then leaving it by his bedside at night. One night, the wife woke up to the sound of the same thumping in the night, but her husband was next to her and the crutch was still by their bed. It was actually Corney, a poltergeist, who was mocking the husband by thumping around in the night. He wreaked havoc on the house, playing practical jokes on the servants. Some of them were so terrified that they threatened to leave. The wife agreed to move them into a bedroom at the top of the house with a special press bed. On the first night, as they went to bed, the doors of the press bed flung open and Corney's voice called out, "Ha, you devils, I am here before you. I am not confined to any particular part of this house." He told them that in life he had been a bad man who had died a bad death. He said he couldn't tell them in what realm he was now because it would anger God. Next up at number 5 now, we have the Dobhar Chu. This creature is also known as the King Otter in Irish folklore. It's said to resemble an otter, a dog and a fish all at once. There have been many documented sightings of it over the years. In the town of Cornwall in County Leitrim lies the grave of a woman who was said to have actually been killed by the Dobhar Chu in the 17th century. Her headstone says she was called Grain. Legend says her husband supposedly heard her scream one night as she was washing her clothes in the lake. He ran to help her, but when he arrived, she was already dead, her body bloody and mutilated by the creature. The man killed the Dobhar Chu by stabbing it right through the heart. As it died, it made a strange whistling noise. At that moment, another Dobhar Chu rose up from the water. It was the mate of the first one. The man fought and killed that one too. Since then, many people know there may be more out there. Some have reported seeing and even fighting them to the death. Moving on to number 4 now, we have the Whispering Mummies. St. Michan's Church is a 330-year-old building that is built on an even more ancient burial ground. Catacombs and grave vaults lie in the darkness below the church with coffins full of well-preserved mummies. Visitors report strange, whispering voices down there, along with an oppressive feeling in the tight hallways. It's a feeling of being in a crowd of people, despite there being nobody around. Some have even reported feeling unseen hands touching them on the back of their necks. For people that go there, the feeling of being in a spirit crowd when they can't see anyone is a very unnerving experience. Moving on to number 3 now, we have the Sligo Mansion. On the Coolera Peninsula in Sligo, a man called William Phibbs built a stately mansion known as Seafield House. It overlooked the sea, and with over 20 rooms, it was a detestable symbol of wealth during the Irish Great Famine. Locals thought that he was a cruel and uncaring landlord. By the early 20th century, his descendant, Owen Phibbs, was using the mansion to store Egyptian artifacts and mummies there. Not long after, there were reports of a poltergeist terrorizing the house. According to some servants, the house would shake and objects would smash into the walls. A ghostly horse-drawn coach was seen trotting up the driveway. Priests were called in to perform several exorcisms, but the activity wouldn't cease. Eventually, it got so bad, even the Phibbs family were driven away. Next up at number 2 now, we have the Murdered Jester. Malahide Castle in Dublin was built by King Henry II of England in the 12th century. It hosted grand medieval feasts, complete with minstrels and jesters for entertainment. One of the jesters, named Puck, saw a female prisoner at a feast one night and fell in love with her. He tried to help her escape, but was stabbed to death outside of the castle by the guards. In his dying breath, he vowed to haunt the place forever. Since then, there have apparently been many sightings of him. Visitors report seeing and photographing his spectral features appearing in the thick ivy that grows on the castle walls near where he was killed. And finally, number 1 now, we have the Vanishing Island. On July 7th, 1878, the residents of Ballycotton in County Cork were shocked to see an island out there in the ocean that had never been there before. Locals stood on the shoreline in absolute disbelief. They could see woodlands, fields, and deep valleys. Fishermen sailed out to investigate, but as they approached, the island flickered out of existence. This isn't an isolated case either. Similar sightings have occurred in County Kerry, County Clare, and Ballina Lane Bay in Galway. Some have tried to explain the sightings of the Vanishing Island as a trick of the light, an optical illusion due to light refraction. Others link it to the old Irish legend of a vanishing island that becomes visible once every 7 years. I did some calculations, and if that's true, then 2018 is also a year where it should appear again. So keep your eyes peeled for that story. What do you guys think of this? Trick of the light, parallel universe, or spectral island? Well guys, also let me know if you want to see an Irish Urban Legends Part 3. We can keep going all the way if you like a particular country enough. I have also heard some other good suggestions for new countries though. One that really stuck out was Brazil. I think that would be a really cool one to do. Brazilian urban legends, how does that sound? Let me know. Thanks for watching as always guys. My name is Danny Burke and I'll see you all in the next video.